It ain't the 60 grand they stole that hurts, honey. It's the moment my own daughter, my sweet girl, looked me in the eye and asked if I was happy, holding a $40 bouquet, while her snake of a husband stood there, smirking. I'd been eating canned beans for 6 months. That's when I knew this was war. But hey, before we dive into this whole messy thing, do me a solid, will ya? Go ahead and smash that subscribe button right now. Seriously, give it a tap. And give me a like! It helps me share my story with more folks who might be going through the same mess. Alright, let's get into the nitty-gritty. I'm Clara Jenkins, and I just turned the big 7-0. 70. Seems like a lot of years until you realize how fast they fly by. I'm sitting here in my small, cozy bungalow in Santa Monica, trying to sort out the last 6 months in my head. I used to be a retired night shift nurse, worked the graveyard shift for 30 years at St. John's, and thought my golden years would be simple. Grandkids, gardening, and maybe a little road trip down the PCH. Man, was I wrong? My life's always been modest. My late husband, God rest his soul, was a great guy, but not a millionaire. He left me this house and I was all set. My pension covered the bills and my meds. I've got one kid, my daughter Chloe. She's 42 now, and let me tell you, she's a rock star. She busted her butt through law school and is now a high-powered corporate attorney in downtown LA, raking in the dough. She married Rex Sterling about 5 years back. Rex is a piece of work, smooth talker, always wearing a suit that probably costs more than my whole retirement fund. He's a wealth management consultant, whatever the heck that means. To me, it just means he knows how to look expensive and talk down to folks. Chloe and Rex live in a glass and steel fortress up in the Hollywood Hills. They drive those fancy Euro cars, and their life is all Vogue magazine spreads and expensive dinners. I was always proud of Chloe, but our lives became totally different planets. She'd visit, maybe once a month, smelling of French perfume, and everything she'd talk about was so far above my pay grade. IPO this, hedge fund that. I'd just nod and smile, happy to see her. About 8 months ago, things took a sharp downturn for me. It was nothing major, just that my chronic arthritis flared up bad. The doctor put me on a new specialty medication that was frankly bonkers expensive. My modest pension just couldn't stretch that far. I was facing a choice between paying the property tax or getting my meds. I was trying to figure out how to sell some old jewelry without Chloe finding out when she called me. "Mom, what's going on?" she asked, her voice sharp with concern. "Your last doctor's bill was insane. Why didn't you tell me?" I tried to brush it off. "It's nothing, honey. Just a little pinch. I'll figure it out." "No, Mom," she insisted. "Stop being a martyr. I'm loaded, remember? I don't want you stressing over little pennies when I'm flying first class to Tokyo for a weekend." Rex and I talked. "We're gonna set up a monthly transfer. We'll send you 20 grand every month. No questions asked. You pay for your meds, hire a cleaner, take a trip, do whatever you want. 20 grand. That number hit me like a ton of bricks. It was an obscene amount of money to me, a retired nurse. I actually started to tear up. "Chloe, sweetie, that's too much. I can't..." "Hush," she said softly. "It's done. Rex is setting up the automatic transfer right now. Don't worry your pretty little head about it, okay? You deserve to chill, Mom. It's a done deal." I remember hanging up, feeling this huge weight lift off my chest. I got down on my knees, right there by the kitchen table, and thanked the Lord. I thought, I am saved. My daughter is a saint. For the first 2 months, January and February, the money came through right on the dot, on the first of the month. Boom, $20,000. It was life-changing. I paid off that massive medical bill, hired a sweet lady named Maria to help me twice a week, and even got a new comfortable recliner. I was feeling great, enjoying my golden years like I was supposed to. Then came March 1st. Nothing. I figured, hey, maybe it's the weekend. Give it a day, March 2nd, still nothing. I checked my bank app 3 times. Nada. I called Chloe. She was hard to reach, always in a meeting, always traveling. When I finally caught her on a quick 5-minute break, I brought it up gently. "Honey, about the transfer. It hasn't hit my account yet. Did Rex maybe forget to set up the recurring thing?" "Oh, Mom, I'm so sorry. I'm literally running to catch a flight," she rushed out. Rex said he had to switch banks for the transfers because of some tax mumbo-jumbo he was doing. He swore he'd handle it. "Let me get him to call you right away, okay? Don't sweat it." Rex never called. The money eventually showed up on March 8th. A lump sum of $20,000. No explanation. I breathed a sigh of relief. Okay, just a glitch. Rex is an idiot with money, but he got it done. April 1st, nothing. May 1st, nothing. June 1st, nothing. July 1st, still nothing. 4 months. Then 5. Now 6 months of absolute silence from my account. That's $120,000 gone, evaporated. I tried calling Chloe dozens of times. Same story every time. He handles all the finances, Mom. He shows me the statements every month. You are getting the money, aren't you? He said you were. And that's where my pride, my foolish protective mom instinct kicked in. How could I tell my successful, busy daughter that her husband, her fancy, rich husband, was lying to her face? That I was too scared to tell her I was going broke? That I was eating generic mac and cheese every night? Or that the nice ladies from the church were dropping off dinner rolls and casseroles just to keep me afloat? I didn't want to cause trouble in her marriage. I didn't want to be a burden. Yes, honey, I'd lie, my voice chirpy. Everything's fine. The money's hitting. I'm doing great. Thanks, sweetie. Meanwhile, my medication stash was dwindling. I had to start rationing. I had to ask the nice people at the local food bank if they had any canned soup. I felt like a loser, a total deadbeat. My neighbor, a sweetheart named Peggy, started dropping off what she called extra food. A fresh chicken, some vegetables. I knew it was pity, but I took it, holding back my tears until she was gone. I just kept thinking, Rex is taking my money and I can't even tell my own kid. Then came last Sunday, the day the poop hit the fan. I was in my tiny kitchen, putting away a box of canned goods that Pastor Tim had just dropped off. Nothing fancy, just the basics. Tuna, pasta, canned peaches. I was feeling pretty low, wishing I could afford a better can opener, when my front door burst open. It was Chloe, looking like $1,000,000, designer dress, hair perfectly coiffed, smelling like a flower shop had exploded. And right behind her, leaning against the door frame with that usual smug look, was Rex. She put a gorgeous white designer handbag and a huge bouquet of gardenias, my favorite, on my worn-out laminate countertop. She rushed over and gave me a massive hug, squeezing me so tight my ribs hurt. Then she pulled back, her face radiant, her eyes sparkling like the big diamond on her finger. She looked around my simple, tired kitchen, then back at me, and asked the question that made my stomach drop all the way to my worn-out. Sensible shoes, Mom, she said, her voice full of genuine love and satisfaction. The $20,000 I send you every month. Is it enough? Are you happy? My heart stopped. Just stopped. I didn't just see the lie. I saw the proof. I saw the food bank box on the counter, half open, with the big, clear label, St. Thomas Food Drive. I saw Rex in the doorway. He was looking at Chloe, not at me, and he had this tiny, almost imperceptible smirk, a little twitch at the corner of his mouth that told me he was savoring the moment. He knew I was broke. He knew I was lying to Chloe. He knew I was surviving on charity, and he was enjoying my humiliation. That little smirk was like a kick to the teeth. In that single moment, all my shame, all my fear of causing trouble, all my silly pride, it evaporated. It was replaced by a cold, hard, righteous fury I hadn't felt since I was a young nurse taking down a belligerent drunk twice my size. Enough is enough. I took a long, slow breath. My hands, which had been trembling for months, suddenly felt rock steady. I looked at the gardenias, then at the food box, then at the smirk on my son-in-law's face. Finally, I looked my beautiful, deceived daughter right in the eye. Honey, I said, my voice quiet, almost a whisper, but clear as a bell. I haven't gotten a dime since March 8th. I've been surviving on Peggy's soup and the church's canned tuna for 6 months. The silence that followed was deafening. It felt like the air had been sucked out of my little kitchen. Chloe's face went from radiant to ghostly pale in 2 seconds flat. Her jaw dropped. She looked at the food bank box, then back at me, her eyes wide with total confusion. Rex, though, was the interesting one. The smirk vanished instantly, replaced by a tight, defensive mask. He pushed himself off the doorframe and took a step into the room, his eyes boring into me. He was trying to intimidate me. Now, Mrs. Jenkins. He jumped in quickly, his voice smooth and oily. Let's not get hyperbolic. I'm sure you're just confused. Sometimes the elderly— "Oh, shut up, Rex." I cut him off, my voice rising a little. I had earned the right to call him out. I might be 70, but my memory is sharp as a tack. I check my bank statement every morning. The last deposit was $20,000 on March 8th. I'm not confused. I'm broke. Chloe whirled around to face her husband, her expensive handbag sliding off her shoulder and hitting the floor with a thud. "Rex, what the heck is she talking about?" Chloe demanded, her voice shaking now. "You showed me the receipts. Every month. You just showed me the July transfer receipt last week." Rex didn't even blink. He's a professional liar. A real piece of work. "It must be a bank error, honey. A serious clerical error. Mrs. Jenkins sometimes forgets which account is which. I'll call the bank first thing tomorrow and sort out this mess." He reached out to put a reassuring hand on Chloe's arm, but she slapped it away. "No, we're not waiting for tomorrow." "You jerk," Chloe spat, grabbing her phone. Her corporate lawyer brain was kicking in, and she was getting ready to do some damage control. "I'm calling the branch manager right now." I stood there, watching this whole scene unfold in my small, tired kitchen. Chloe, the whirlwind of fury and disbelief, pressing the phone to her ear. Rex, standing stiffly, his eyes darting between Chloe and me, that calculating look back in his eyes, weighing his options, calculating his escape route. I realized then that he wasn't just stealing the money. He was playing a long game. He was showing Chloe fake statements, using his wealth management knowledge to cook the books, all while I was here, starving. He didn't just want my money. He wanted to control my daughter's perception of me, to make me look like the confused old lady. Chloe finally hung up the phone. She looked utterly drained. Her eyes, those beautiful, clear eyes, were now clouded with a dawning horror. "Mom." The manager confirmed it. She whispered, her voice barely audible. "They have no record of any transfers since March 8th. Rex instantly went into deflection mode, shouting over her. "It's a mistake." "They're lying. I'll sue the bank. You must have given me the wrong account number, Clara." "I never gave you any account number, Rex," I said calmly, cutting through his noise. "You took it from Chloe's files months ago. You know my number. You just didn't use it." Chloe didn't say another word to him. She just looked at her husband. This man she'd built a life with. This father figure she'd given me, and her face went through a profound transformation. Confusion, then certainty, then a slow, building rage. "Where is the money, Rex?" she asked, her voice dangerously low, like the calm before a hurricane. He tried one last time. "Honey, let's not make a scene. Your mother is clearly upset. We can talk about this when we get home. It's just a misunderstanding." "It's not a misunderstanding," she screamed, all her corporate polish gone. "It's $120,000 of my money that was supposed to be keeping my mother alive, and you took it. You looked me in the eye every month and showed me a piece of paper that was a lie. What the heck did you spend it on, you snake?" Tears were streaming down her face now, but she wasn't sobbing. It was tears of pure, furious betrayal. As I watched my daughter finally see the truth that cost me so much dignity and fear, I didn't feel any triumph, just a terrible, aching pain for her, and a resolve for myself. This wasn't about a banking error. This wasn't about an old lady's confusion. This was about a predator who thought he could steal from a vulnerable senior citizen and get away with it, hiding behind a facade of wealth and a loving marriage. In that moment, standing there amidst the gardenias and the canned tuna, I knew I had to do more than just get my money back. I had to expose this man. I had to make sure he paid for every single night I went to bed hungry and scared. My silence was over. My battle had just begun. I was old. I was tired. But I was not going to let this jerk win. I was ready to fight. The quiet, simple life I had planned was gone, replaced by a need for justice. I knew this was going to be a nasty, drawn-out fight, a real slog. But I had my daughter on my side now, and a fury that made my 70-year-old body feel strong again. I had been robbed of my money, but not my guts. This was the moment I realized the truth was my most powerful weapon, and I was fixing to use it. The moment Chloe's face crumbled, I knew Rex's little game was over. That raw, gut-wrenching pain on my daughter's face. That was the real price of his betrayal. Worse than the $70,000 he pocketed. Worse than the canned beans I choked down. I watched him try to pull his smooth talker routine one last time, and I just had to stand there, waiting for my girl to fully wizen up. "Honey, you're being hysterical," Rex tried, his voice turning icy. He was clearly losing his cool, which was a good sign. The mask was slipping. "It's a marital issue, not some crime wave. We'll deal with the bank screw-up later. Let's go home and—" "I am not going home with you." Chloe cut him off, her voice low and dangerous, like a rattled cobra. She picked up her fallen handbag, not bothering to wipe the tears, and reached inside, pulling out her car keys and her sleek, expensive phone. "I'm calling Paul, and then I'm calling the cops, Rex. You didn't just steal money. You committed fraud against a senior citizen." "That's a felony, you dirtbag." Rex actually laughed, a short, sharp sound that was completely devoid of humor. "The cops? Seriously, Clara? You think they care about some old lady's confused complaint? We'll just say you messed up the account number, and I was trying to help you manage your finances. Good luck proving intent. We share an account, Chloe. It's all ours." That word, ours, hit me wrong. He sounded like he owned us both. I stepped closer to Chloe and put a steadying hand on her back. "He's trying to rattle you, honey. Don't let him. Your lawyer will know exactly what to do." Chloe took a deep, shuddering breath. "Paul is already on the line. I'll meet him downtown in an hour. Mom, you are coming with me. Now. I'm not leaving you here alone with this creep." Rex realized he was cornered. His face twisted into a snarl that wiped away every trace of his consultant charm. "You do this, Chloe, and you'll regret it. I'll make sure you regret dragging my name through the mud." "Oh, you think your name isn't mud already?" Chloe shot back, grabbing my arm. "You let my mother eat food bank leftovers while you were probably buying your latest Rolex." She hustled me out the door before Rex could say another word. He just stood there in the middle of my small kitchen, surrounded by the smell of gardenias and canned tuna, looking absolutely furious. The last thing I saw was his expensive Italian shoe kicking the food bank box, sending a can of peaches rolling across the floor. What a childish loser. We drove the few blocks to my neighbor Peggy's place. Peggy, bless her heart, was a retired school librarian and sharp as a tack. I quickly told her what happened, and she immediately agreed to call me if Rex tried to pull any other stunts at my house. "Go, Clara. You get justice." "Girl," Peggy said, handing me a small, slightly dented wooden box. "Here, take this. It's my little good luck charm. You're gonna need it for the battle ahead." I tucked the box into my purse, feeling a small surge of strength from her kindness. The drive up to Chloe's lawyer's office downtown was silent, thick with tension. Chloe was driving her Mercedes like a bat out of hell, her knuckles white on the steering wheel. I could see her mind racing, processing months of lies. When we finally got to the lawyer's office, the air conditioning was ice cold, and everything was polished marble and dark wood. Paul Peterson was a calm, older gentleman in a beautifully tailored suit. He listened to our story with that quiet, intense lawyer focus. I recounted the 6 months of silence, the monthly lies Chloe was fed, and Rex's final smug reaction. Chloe showed him the text messages from Rex confirming the transfers and her call log with the bank manager. "This is exactly what we call a slam dunk, ladies," Paul said, leaning back in his chair. "We have a clear case of financial fraud and, more seriously, financial elder abuse. That's a major charge here in California, and the penalties are severe. Rex made a very foolish move stealing from you, Clara. The law takes this kind of betrayal seriously." He explained the dual track we'd be taking. First, Chloe would immediately file for divorce and a temporary restraining order, TRO, against Rex. This was non-negotiable. He had threatened her and was clearly unhinged. Second, I would file a separate civil lawsuit against Rex for the stolen $120,000, plus damages for the emotional distress he caused. "We need to move fast," Paul stressed. "Rex is a wealth manager. He knows how to hide money. The moment he gets served divorce papers, he'll start shuffling assets faster than a Las Vegas dealer." He then did the best thing a lawyer can do. He stopped being general and got specific. He recommended a specialized lawyer for me, someone who handles elder abuse cases exclusively, attorney Maxine Rhodes. "She's a tiger," he warned. "She doesn't do nice, she does win. You want her in your corner." Chloe was already nodding. "We'll call her right now, Mom." While Paul was busy pulling up Maxine's number, Chloe broke down again. She slumped in the chair, covering her face. "Mom, I am so stupid." He was always so controlling about the money, always showing me the statements instead of letting me check the account myself. I was so busy, so focused on work, I trusted him. How could I have been so blind? I went over and hugged her tight. "Listen to me, honey. People like Rex, they are masters of illusion. They make a career out of deceiving people. You're not blind. You were just a good, trusting wife. Don't blame yourself for his rotten choices." We spent the rest of the afternoon setting things in motion. Paul's office quickly prepared the restraining order paperwork. Chloe immediately transferred $120,000 back into my account, the full 6 months, plus a little extra to cover the stress. "I'm making sure it's done, Mom. No intermediaries." "Never again," she vowed. The next morning, I met Maxine Rhodes. Paul hadn't been kidding. Maxine was a woman in her late 50s, dressed in a sharp black pantsuit, with an expression that looked like she was permanently smelling something bad, probably injustice. She didn't offer tea, she didn't chit-chat, she just laid out the facts like a prosecutor. "Clara," she said, cutting right to the chase, "I want 2 things. 1, justice for the fraud. 2, I want enough pain inflicted in court that Rex Sterling never tries to steal from an old lady again. Is that what you want?" "Yes," I confirmed, my voice ringing with certainty. "I don't just want the money. I want him to face consequences. I want him to know what it feels like to be powerless." Maxine gave a tiny, satisfied nod. "Good. We'll start with a forensic audit of those funds. Paul will get the TRO served today. That means Rex can't come near you, Chloe, or your house." I left Maxine's office feeling like I'd just hired an army. I had the full weight of my high-powered daughter, her meticulous lawyer, and a legal bulldog named Maxine Rhodes on my side. The fear was still there, but it was buried under layers of determination. I decided to go home, even though Chloe wanted me to stay at her high-rise. "No, honey, I need to get back to my own place. I need to feel grounded. Besides, Rex can't come within 500 feet of me now," I assured her. When I got back to my quiet Santa Monica street, Peggy was out watering her roses. She gave me a worried look. "Clara, I saw Rex's car speeding away about an hour ago. He looked like he'd just swallowed a bag of nails." My heart jumped a little. He'd been served the TRO. I thanked Peggy, trying to look calm, and went to my front door. The key was a little sticky, but I got the door open and stepped inside. The smell hit me first. Not the usual scent of old furniture and dusting powder, but something sharp and acrid. I flipped the light switch and froze. My small, cozy living room, my sanctuary for the last 20 years, was a disaster zone. It wasn't just messy, it was vandalized. My bookshelf, which held all my precious, well-loved novels, was tipped over, and the books were scattered everywhere, some pages ripped out. The small mahogany table my late husband made, smashed. All the family photos on the mantelpiece, my beautiful wedding picture, Chloe's graduation photo, were lying on the floor, the glass shattered into a million pieces. Someone had taken a knife or something sharp to the old floral sofa, slicing long, deep gashes across the upholstery. My breath hitched in my throat. This wasn't just anger. This was spiteful, cold-blooded destruction. I stumbled into the kitchen, and that's where I saw the real depth of his malice. On the wall, right above where I keep my coffee maker, Rex had used a can of red spray paint. In huge, jagged letters, it screamed, "Ungrateful wretch, you'll pay for this." My legs gave out. I sank onto the floor, the splintered wood from the broken table digging into my hand, and just stared at the ugly crimson threat on my own wall. All the money, all the lies, all the stolen dignity, it was all condensed into that one vulgar word, wretch. He hadn't just stolen $120,000. He had tried to steal my peace, my home, my last sense of security. He had physically violated the one place I thought was safe. The tears finally came, not the quiet, ashamed kind from a few days ago, but huge, furious sobs that shook my entire body. I picked up my phone, my hands trembling uncontrollably, and called Chloe. "Honey, he was here," I choked out, unable to say anything more. "My house? He trashed it." Chloe was there in 15 minutes. bringing 2 uniformed Santa Monica police officers with her. Her face went dead white when she saw the destruction. She immediately pulled me into a protective hug. The officers were all business. They took pictures of the graffiti, the slashed furniture, the scattered debris. "Ma'am, this is breaking and entering vandalism and an explicit criminal threat," the lead officer stated sternly. "This is a serious violation of the TRO. We will be filing a formal report right now and issuing a warrant for his arrest." That's when I felt the cold fury return, stronger than ever. Rex thought he could scare me back into silence. He thought he could break my things and I would tuck tail and run. He thought wrong. I looked at the destroyed living room, at the ugly red thread on the wall, and I made a vow to myself. This man was not just getting sued for money. He was going to pay for every tear on my daughter's face, for every night I spent hungry, and for every piece of glass he shattered in my home. He wanted a fight? He was getting a war. "I want him charged with everything," I told the officer, my voice low and firm. "I want the criminal charges. And tell my lawyer to add this vandalism and the explicit threat to the civil lawsuit. He can't just pay a fine for this. He has to suffer consequences." Chloe and the police officers looked at me, maybe seeing a bit of the tough night shift nurse I used to be. I was 70, but I was suddenly ready to be a pit bull. Rex Sterling had messed with the wrong old lady. My revenge was going to be cold, public, and legal. I left my damaged home that night to stay at Chloe's, but as I walked out, I didn't feel defeated. I felt like a fuse had been lit. The next morning, I was calling Maxine Rhodes, and we were going to turn this petty theft case into a high-profile public spectacle that would end Rex Sterling's career and maybe even put him behind bars. He was about to find out that a small, quiet, 70-year-old nurse from Santa Monica could be the most dangerous opponent he ever faced. Lying in Chloe's guest suite that night, I couldn't sleep a wink. It wasn't the fear that kept me up. It was the red paint on my kitchen wall, turning over and over in my head. Ungrateful wretch! That word, wretch. It was Rex's final desperate attempt to make me feel small, but all it did was fuel my engine. I realized the vandalism wasn't a threat. It was his meltdown. He was panicking, and panic makes people sloppy. I got up before the sun, poured myself a strong cup of coffee, and was on the phone with Maxine Rhodes the second her office officially opened. "Maxine, he broke the TRO. He vandalized my home and left a criminal threat on the wall. The police have filed a report," I said, skipping the small talk. There was a pregnant pause on the line. Then Maxine's voice came back, cold as ice, but with a hint of satisfaction. "Clara, this is better than I hoped. Rex just escalated this from a civil dispute to a criminal matter. We don't just sue him now. We use the criminal charges as leverage. This is excellent for our strategy." Maxine explained the new game plan. First, she was going to petition the court for an emergency freeze on certain assets in Rex's name, claiming he was a flight risk and was actively trying to destroy evidence and intimidate witnesses, which, hello, he was. Second, she was going to coordinate with the district attorney's office. Since the police report included financial elder abuse and criminal threats, the DA would likely pick up the case quickly. "We need a public narrative, Clara," Maxine stated. "Rex is an image consultant. He's built his career on looking clean and legitimate. We are going to blow that image up. We need to make this case about more than $120,000. We need to make it about a wealthy predator victimizing a vulnerable senior. We are going to make the papers, and we are going to make his clients nervous. I want this guy canceled." I felt a thrill run through me. Canceled. That sounded just about right. Chloe, meanwhile, was handling the divorce like the corporate shark she is. She had her lawyer, Paul, immediately file an at-fault divorce petition based on adultery, thanks to the Cayman Islands and Laura, and financial abuse fraud. She also had her accounting firm start digging deep into Rex's books. "Mom, it's worse than we thought," Chloe told me over breakfast a few days later, her eyes tired but focused. "He wasn't just stealing from you. He was using your supposed $20,000 monthly allowance as a tax write-off. He claimed it as a consulting fee to a shell company he controls. He was using your need to commit tax fraud." "Good grief," I muttered. "He's not just a snake. He's a whole rattlesnake nest." "Exactly," Chloe affirmed. "Paul is giving all this to Maxine. She's going to love this. It adds federal charges to the mix. He thought he was so slick. The next few weeks were a blur of depositions, court filings, and phone calls. Maxine was a machine. She had a network of sharp-elbowed paralegals who gathered everything. The fake bank statements Rex showed Chloe, the actual bank statements showing the gap, the police photos of my vandalized house, and the threatening graffiti. One of the most important pieces of evidence came from a surprising source. Laura, Rex's mistress. Remember her? She reached out to me via an anonymous email, which Maxine's team had traced back to a burner phone. She said she had information about Rex's assets and was willing to trade it for immunity, or at least protection from him, as he was now sending her veiled threats after Chloe had exposed their affair. Maxine immediately scheduled a meeting. She insisted I come too. "It's important you see who he really is, Clara," she said. We met Laura in a private room at a fancy but discreet hotel downtown. Laura was young, maybe 30, and looked utterly terrified. She wasn't some high-rolling glamour girl. She was a sales rep for a minor cosmetics company, easily manipulated. "He told me he was separated," Laura whispered, fidgeting with a small purse. "He said he was just waiting for the papers to be finalized. He acted like a big shot, always buying me expensive gifts. He even bought me a small apartment near my job." Then she dropped the bomb. He paid for the down payment on that apartment with an account he called his emergency fund. It was a bank account in the Cayman Islands. He told me he set it up to avoid taxes after his last big consulting deal. Maxine's eyes lit up. Cayman Islands. Bingo. We knew it, but we needed a witness. Laura provided printed emails and even a few bank wire receipts. Rex's transfers to her, which mirrored the dates the transfers to me were supposed to have been made. He was stealing my money and literally buying an apartment for his mistress. The level of cold-blooded deception made my stomach churn. "Why tell us?" I asked her softly, finally speaking up. Laura looked right at me, and her eyes filled with genuine regret. "I saw the news article online, the one about the elderly nurse in Santa Monica being defrauded. I saw your picture, Clara. I realized the consulting fee he was paying me was your medicine money. He even gave me a watch, a $15,000 designer watch, around the same time he was supposed to be paying for your health care. I can't live with that. I'll give you the account number. Everything. I just need him out of my life." Maxine got everything she needed. Rex's entire crooked financial life was laid bare, thanks to his terrified mistress. The next day, Maxine made her big move. She filed a $5 million civil suit against Rex, citing fraud, elder abuse, emotional distress, and vandalism. She also publicly announced the pending criminal investigation for financial elder abuse and tax fraud, leaking the details of the Cayman Islands account to a reputable but aggressive local news channel. The news hit Rex like a freight train. The headline was sensational. Hollywood Hills millionaire arrested for fraud. Allegedly starved mother-in-law to fund mistress's luxury apartment. They included the picture of my vandalized wall. The word wretch blurred but visible. His high-powered career crashed instantly. His firm, the wealth management company he was partnered with, immediately issued a statement saying they were suspending him pending investigation. His main clients, big tech CEOs and producers, started pulling their accounts faster than a cheetah on a treadmill. His reputation was toast. Chloe called me, almost giddy with grim satisfaction. "Mom, his picture is on the cover of the LA Business Daily, right under a list of his top accounts that just left him. He's getting absolutely annihilated in the press." The police finally caught up with Rex a day later. They arrested him outside a fancy gym in Beverly Hills, and the local news crew that Maxine had tipped off was there to film the whole thing. The footage of Rex Sterling, looking pale and sweating in a designer tracksuit, being led away in handcuffs, was instantly viral. Justice, I decided, felt pretty darn good. Rex was released on a massive bail, but the damage was done. He had lost his job, his reputation, and his freedom was hanging by a thread. He was suddenly persona non grata, in the very circles he had worked so hard to impress. But this wasn't the end. The real fight was about to begin. Rex, cornered and desperate, was not going to go down without one last dirty fight. Maxine called me the day after his release. "Clara, he's scared, but he's also angry. He's talking about character defamation and countersuing. He's trying to dig up dirt on you. Are there any skeletons in your closet, Clara? Anything at all he could try to spin?" I thought back over my 70 years, A quiet life, a devoted nurse, a single mother. Nothing exciting, just one thing, Maxine. I admitted slowly, something that happened when Chloe was little. It wasn't a crime, but it was messy. It involved a patient, his family, and a lot of emotional fallout. I buried it 20 years ago. Maxine's voice was instantly alert. Tell me everything, Clara, every last detail. We need to know his ammunition before he fires. I took a deep breath. It was the hardest secret I had ever kept. A painful memory that still brought me shame. But Rex was threatening my daughter and my future. It was time to finally face my past. It happened right after my husband passed. I began, my voice trembling slightly. It involves a man named Mr. Thorne, a massive amount of inherited wealth, and a decision I made on the clock that cost me my last shred of faith in people. I knew that giving Maxine this information was essential, but it felt like ripping open an old wound. I was finally ready to use my voice, but now I had to reveal my one buried weakness to the world. The next part of the battle would be deeply personal, and I had a feeling Rex was going to try to use my own daughter against me. When I told Maxine about Mr. Thorne, the whole room seemed to get colder. I was sitting in Chloe's immaculate living room, all glass and light, but my mind was back in a stale, fluorescent-lit hospital room 20 years ago. It felt like tearing a bandage off an old, festering wound. Maxine, this is the only thing Rex could possibly use to mess with my credibility, I started, taking a shaky breath. It was right after my husband died. I was working double shifts, heartbroken, and frankly, running on fumes. The man, Mr. Thorne, was an elderly gentleman, maybe 80, and a patient on my floor. He was a widower, no kids, but he had a handful of greedy, nasty cousins lurking around, sniffing after his fortune. He was a sweet soul, but his heart was giving out. He was completely lucid, but terribly lonely. I took care of him for months, I explained. I was his nurse, yes, but I was also his only friend. We'd talk about old movies and gardening. He trusted me. One night, he called me over, clutching a pen and a piece of paper, shaky as a leaf. He looked me right in the eye and said, Clara, I'm dying. I don't want those vultures getting a dime. I want to leave everything to the people who need it. He meant the hospital foundation, the local library, and me. Maxine leaned forward, her expression completely unreadable. He tried to put you in his will? No, Maxine. He tried to put me in his codicil, the last-minute change, I clarified. He wrote down that he was leaving me $50,000 for my kindness, enough to pay off my house. He signed it, had another nurse witness it, and then he asked me to make sure his lawyer got it first thing in the morning. I paused, the memory still stinging. I never sent it. Why not, Clara? Maxine's voice was sharp. Because I was a nurse, Maxine. Nurses aren't supposed to benefit from their patients. It felt sleazy. It felt wrong. I tore it up. I went to the supervisor the next day and told her what happened. I said I was worried the family would accuse me of undue influence, and I didn't want the scandal hurting the hospital's reputation or my career. I swore I'd never accept anything from a patient. Mr. Thorne passed away a week later. The cousins fought like dogs over the money, and the hospital spent 6 months in a messy public battle against them. The gossip on the floor was awful. Everyone knew he'd tried to change his will. When the cousins eventually found out that the patient had attempted to write me a codicil, they didn't believe I'd torn it up. They believed I had taken the money and hidden it. They hounded me, Maxine, I whispered. They tried to sue me, claiming I influenced an old man, and then destroyed the evidence when the amount wasn't big enough for my liking. The hospital backed me up, but the local papers got a whiff of the scandal. Nurse accused of swindling dying patient, and it was ugly. The lawsuit was tossed out eventually, but the rumors followed me for years. It was why I eventually left night nursing. Maxine looked me over for a long moment, processing the whole mess. So the evidence against you is that you refused $50,000 and the money went to his estate, but the family accused you of fraud anyway? Exactly. The optics are terrible, though. It looks like a classic setup. The lonely senior, the trusting nurse, the missing evidence. Rex could easily spin that I'm a professional gold digger who has been trying to fleece seniors for 20 years, and the only reason I'm suing him is because he cut me off, I explained. He'll use it to argue that I'm the real abuser here. Maxine cracked a tiny, almost invisible smile. Clara, this is actually a gift. We use this. You didn't steal the money. You tore up $50,000 because of your ethics. That is the opposite of Rex. We preemptively leak this story, but our way. We control the narrative. Ethical nurse who refused $50,000 inheritance now fights predatory son-in-law. We frame it as proof of your impeccable character. Maxine went straight to work, and within 48 hours, Rex launched his counterattack. He filed a motion in the divorce court to unseal my old medical records, claiming he needed to prove my diminished mental capacity to stand trial. Simultaneously, his lawyer, a slimy, bulldog type named Victor Hayes, gave a scathing interview to a trashy, low-tier gossip blog, implying that I was a notorious con artist with a history of suspicious financial dealings with elderly patients. Rex himself called Chloe, breaking the TRO again just to spit venom. Your mother is a pathological liar, Chloe. Ask her about the Thorn incident. Ask her why she left St. John's. She's running a long con and you're funding it. Chloe was furious but prepared. She had learned to expect his dirty tricks. He's pathetic, Mom. I told him to talk to Paul, not me. But I looked into the Thorn case. It was dismissed, Mom. You did nothing wrong. But the smell of it, honey. That's what Rex is going after. I sighed. Maxine handled the legal end with her signature brutality. She immediately filed contempt charges against Rex for violating the TRO again. She also went on a major network news show to counter his accusations. Mr. Sterling's attempts to portray my client, a retired nurse and war widow, as mentally unfit or a con artist are absolutely ludicrous. And frankly, sick, Maxine stated, looking directly into the camera. Mrs. Jenkins's only crime was being an ethical, compassionate caregiver who refused a $50,000 inheritance from a grateful patient 20 years ago. We have proof she tore up the codicil. Mr. Sterling, however, has a criminal record, a current police warrant for breaking and entering, a mistress, and multiple bank records showing he stole money intended for his mother-in-law's life-saving medication. The contrast couldn't be clearer. He is trying to intimidate a vulnerable woman, and we will not allow it. Maxine was a genius. By turning my secret into a badge of honor, she completely neutralized Rex's best weapon. The public backlash against Rex intensified. People saw a wealthy, desperate man attacking an elderly woman with an impeccable ethical history. But Rex wasn't done playing lowball. A few days later, a stack of envelopes arrived at my Santa Monica house, which was still being cleaned up. Addressed to me, Chloe and Peggy. They weren't letters. They were professional, high-quality flyers. On the flyer was a grainy, zoomed-in picture of me standing next to the food bank box the day Chloe found out the truth. Underneath, in huge, bold letters, it read, "Fighting for justice? Or just a gold-digging wretch?" And it then gave a distorted, misleading account of the Thorn case, and ended with a plea for people to contact the DA and demand the case against Rex be dropped. It was signed, "A Concerned Citizen Against Elder Abuse Fraud." Rex had hired someone to print and distribute a smear campaign right in my neighborhood. He was trying to turn my kind, supportive neighbors against me. "That's crossing the line, Mom," Chloe said, staring at the flyer with disgust. "He's attacking our neighbors now." Peggy, bless her heart, brought the flyer right over. "Clara, this piece of garbage showed up." "Don't worry, honey. We all know Rex is a lying jerk. This just proves he's desperate. But this isn't just harassment. This is criminal defamation." "She's right," I told Chloe, handing her the flyer. "Maxine needs to see this. He just gave us the evidence we need to get him locked up for good." I knew this move was a Hail Mary pass from Rex. He was throwing everything, including the kitchen sink and the kitchen counter, at us. But he underestimated the bond of a supportive community and the fury of a daughter who had been betrayed. He was about to find out that a small, quiet street in Santa Monica was tougher to fight than a courtroom full of lawyers. The battle for my money was almost over, but the fight for my complete, satisfying revenge had just gotten personal. Rex's flyer, that nasty, desperate piece of paper calling me a gold-digging wretch, was the moment he stopped fighting the lawyers and started fighting the community. And let me tell you, honey, you do not want to mess with a bunch of retired nurses, librarians, and lifelong Santa Monica residents. We know how to organize, and we know how to hold a grudge. I immediately sent the flyer to Maxine Rhodes, and she was ecstatic. "This is perfect, Clara. He committed criminal defamation and witness intimidation in print. This is enough for the DA to revoke his bail. He's trying to influence the jury pool, which is a major no-no. We're going to put him back in the slammer. While Maxine worked her legal magic, my neighbor Peggy took over the neighborhood angle. Peggy, the retired librarian, was suddenly acting like a seasoned political strategist. He tried to shame you. "Clara, right here on Sycamore Street," Peggy declared, standing in my slightly rearranged, but still scarred living room. "Well, we're going to hit him where it hurts. His precious reputation." Peggy and a few other neighbors, Mr. Daniel from the corner, who had fixed my leaky faucet, and Maria, my cleaning lady, whose wages Rex had indirectly stolen, organized a little protest. Not some big, loud mob, but a respectful, yet highly visible demonstration of support. They printed their own signs, bright red and blue, the exact opposite of Rex's trashy flyer. One read, "Rex Sterling, elder abuser, not wealth manager." Another, "Clara Jenkins, ethical nurse, community hero." They stood for 2 hours right outside the gates of Rex's high-profile office building downtown, before his firm officially fired him. Peggy even made sure a local independent journalist she knew got tipped off. The resulting news segment, "Community Rallies Against Accused White-Collar Thief," was brutal for Rex. It showed his mugshot right next to photos of kind-faced Peggy and Mr. Daniel holding up signs, confirming that the vulnerable senior he was attacking was actually a beloved figure. He was trying to call me a wretch, and my friends called him an abuser. Point, set, match, community. The following week, the DA, feeling the pressure and seeing the rock-solid evidence, especially the flyer, finally moved. Rex's bail was revoked. I got the call from Maxine while I was having lunch with Chloe. "He's back in custody, Clara. Violation of TRO, criminal threats, and witness intimidation. The judge said he was a danger to the community. He's not getting out this time. He's going to be sitting in a nice cold cell until the preliminary hearings." A wave of intense relief washed over me. Not victory, not yet, but peace. I finally felt safe in my own skin again. I looked at Chloe, and she just smiled a small, tired, but genuine smile. "Good," was all she said. "Now we can focus on the divorce." With Rex locked up, the legal process accelerated. Chloe's divorce lawyer, Paul, was able to secure a major victory. Using the evidence of Rex's fraud, his affair, and his criminal activities, Paul argued that Rex was entirely at fault and had breached his marital duty. The court ruled that Chloe would retain almost all of their shared assets, including the Hollywood Hills house and the clinic business, while Rex would be responsible for his own massive legal fees and debts. It was a complete financial wipeout for him. Meanwhile, Maxine was preparing my civil case for trial. Our goal wasn't just to win the $5 million damages, which was likely, but to get a summary judgment on the fraud and elder abuse charges, meaning the judge would rule in our favor before the trial even began because the evidence was so overwhelming. Maxine called me into her office for a final prep session. "Clara, this is our moment," she said, leaning across the table. "We have the bank records. We have Laura's testimony about the Cayman account and the mistress apartment. We have the police report on the vandalism. And we have the flyer." The judge is leaning toward us. But Rex is planning a final, desperate move. She pulled out a confidential legal document. Rex's lawyer, Hayes, is arguing that Rex's entire defense hinges on a misunderstanding. That he was saving the money for a surprise investment for you, but that you, due to your age and alleged memory issues, misunderstood the timing and his eccentric financial management. And they are requesting a hearing for a specific reason. They are calling Chloe to the stand, not as a witness for them, but as a hostile witness against you. I felt a chill. Calling Chloe? To testify against me? Yes. They want to force her to admit that Rex showed her the statements, thus implying she confirmed the funds were being managed. They want to sow doubt about your relationship and make it look like she's only suing him because of a personal grudge, not because of the theft. They want to drive a wedge between you two. He's trying to weaponize my own daughter against me. I breathed. It was the lowest blow yet. Exactly. It's a nasty emotional trick. Chloe is his ex-wife. They can force her testimony. We need to prepare her. She needs to be stone cold and stick to the facts, Maxine warned. I met Chloe that evening. She was ready. Mom, he knows he's going down. This is his final pathetic gasp. He wants to hurt me, and he wants to hurt you. But he won't win. I am not letting him use me one more time. I looked at my daughter, the powerful attorney, stripped of her naive trust, and forged into steel. The trauma had changed her, but it had also made her stronger than I had ever imagined. The day of the crucial hearing arrived. It was in a downtown courthouse, and the room was packed. Rex, looking pale and miserable in a cheap suit, was sitting at the defense table. His lawyer, Hayes, looked nervous. I took the stand first. Maxine walked me through the entire, painful story. The need for medication. Chloe's generous promise. The 2 months of payments, the 6 months of silence, the reliance on the church and neighbors, and the final confrontation in the kitchen. I spoke quietly, clearly, and with absolute dignity. I didn't exaggerate or cry. I simply stated the facts of my humiliation and struggle. When Rex's lawyer, Hayes, cross-examined me, he immediately brought up the Thorne incident. Mrs. Jenkins, isn't it true you were accused of exploiting a dying patient for financial gain 20 years ago? Hayes sneered. Objection irrelevant, Maxine thundered, overruled. Answer the question, Mrs. Jenkins, the judge said calmly. I was accused, I replied, looking Hayes straight in the eye, and the court dismissed the case. But let me be clear, counselor. The patient tried to leave me $50,000 for my care, and I tore up the legal document because it was against my ethics as a nurse. Your client stole $120,000 intended for my medication. There is a huge difference between refusing money out of ethics and stealing money out of greed. The courtroom stirred. I could see Hayes flinch. My honesty had cut through his spin. Then came the moment of truth. Chloe was called to the stand. Hayes started his attack immediately. Ms. Sterling, your mother testified she was starving for 6 months. But isn't it true your then-husband, Mr. Rex Sterling, showed you bank statements every month confirming the transfers were made? Yes, he did, Chloe said calmly, looking at the judge, not Hayes. And you believed him? I did. So, you, a successful corporate attorney, saw the proof and were satisfied your mother was receiving funds? Hayes leaned in, sensing victory. Rex, at the defense table, actually managed a smirk. I saw the proof that Mr. Sterling gave me, Chloe stated, her voice like ice. I believed the proof was genuine because I trusted my husband. I now know those statements were forgeries, and the account numbers listed were incorrect. The fact that I was deceived does not negate my mother's testimony. It merely confirms my ex-husband's pattern of fraud and deception. I was his first victim in this long con. My mother was the second. Chloe delivered the final line with such conviction that the entire courtroom went silent. She hadn't just stuck to the facts. She had turned his own trick against him, making herself a credible co-victim. Hayes looked absolutely deflated. He had tried to break their bond, and it had only made them stronger. Maxine rested our case by simply presenting the photos of the red graffiti in the vandalized house. Your Honor, the defendant's actions speak louder than any of his lawyer's arguments. He defrauded his mother-in-law, starved her, and then, upon discovery, criminally threatened and vandalized her home. We respectfully request a summary judgment on the charges of fraud and financial elder abuse. The judge called for a brief recess to consider the motion. Rex sat there, no smirk left, just a vacant look of defeat. His life, his career, and his freedom were about to be decided. As I looked at him, I didn't feel triumph. I felt a cold sense of finality. He had lost everything because of his own rotten choices. The courtroom felt like it was holding its breath. The judge, a stern-looking woman in her late 60s, returned from her chambers. The tension was so thick you could have cut it with a dull butter knife. This wasn't just about money anymore. It was about dignity, about seeing a rotten person face the music. The judge cleared her throat, and the room went absolutely silent. Rex, who had been fidgeting like a school kid, instantly froze. In the matter of Jenkins versus Sterling, the judge began, her voice crisp and clear. The court has reviewed the motions and the evidence presented, including bank records, sworn testimony, and the criminal police report. She didn't waste any time with the fluff. The evidence presented by the plaintiff's counsel, Ms. Rhodes, unequivocally establishes a pattern of deliberate financial deception and theft by the defendant. Mr. Rex Sterling, The defendant used fabricated financial statements to deceive his wife, Ms. Chloe Sterling, and intentionally withheld funds intended for his mother-in-law's medical care and subsistence. She continued, hitting the key points like a hammer on an anvil. The defendant's subsequent actions, the violation of the restraining order, the vandalism of the plaintiff's home, and the distribution of defamatory flyers, further, demonstrate a malicious intent to intimidate and inflict emotional distress upon a vulnerable senior citizen. I felt Chloe's hand squeeze mine under the table. She was trembling. Therefore, the judge concluded, looking directly at a pale, defeated Rex, the court finds the evidence to be overwhelming. We grant a summary judgment in favor of the plaintiff, Ms. Clara Jenkins, on the charges of fraud, conversion, and financial elder abuse. A small, quiet cheer went up from Peggy and Mr. Daniel in the gallery, which the bailiff quickly silenced. The judge then laid out the financial damages. The defendant, Mr. Rex Sterling, is ordered to pay the plaintiff, Ms. Clara Jenkins, the principal amount of $120,000 in restitution, plus $3.8 million in punitive and emotional distress damages. This judgment will be immediately enforceable and will be factored into the final distribution of the divorce assets. $3.8 million. The number was insane. I was completely stunned. I looked at Maxine, and she gave me that tiny, victorious nod. She hadn't been kidding. She had absolutely annihilated him. Rex's lawyer, Hayes, immediately jumped up, looking panicked. Your Honor, the punitive damages are excessive. My client can't pay that. We intend to appeal. The judge simply glared at him. You may appeal, counselor. But your client's criminal conduct, targeting a senior for financial abuse, warrants a substantial penalty. This court will not tolerate the predatory exploitation of the elderly. Mr. Sterling's actions deserve to be a public deterrent. With that, the civil hearing was over. Rex was left looking like a shell of a man. He had lost the suit, he was out of bail, and he was staring down the barrel of a criminal trial. We left the courthouse through a gaggle of reporters. Maxine, of course, was in her element. Justice was served today, she announced, holding my arm up like a prize fighter. This is a victory for every senior who has ever been silenced or defrauded by a trusted relative. Mr. Sterling's predatory career is over. Chloe and I slipped away in a cab, leaving the media frenzy behind. The moment we were alone, Chloe let out a long, shaky breath and leaned her head against my shoulder. We did it, Mom. It's really over, she whispered. The civil part is, I corrected her gently. The criminal part is still coming. I know, but Rex is ruined. He has nothing left. He stole your money, and in return he lost his house, his career, his wife, and millions of dollars. That's a pretty fair trade, if you ask me. The next few weeks were all about cleanup and moving on. The funds from the divorce settlement were tied up, but Chloe immediately secured a massive line of credit against her future assets to pay the $3.8 million judgment to me. She was adamant about it. I need you to take that money, Mom, she insisted. It's not just a payout. It's the cost of my mistake. I need to make this right. I eventually agreed. I wasn't doing this for the cash, but for the principal. That money represented every humiliating hour I had spent scared and hungry. With the settlement money, the first thing I did was what I had promised myself. I fixed my house. I hired a construction crew, and they scrubbed off that terrible red graffiti, replaced the slashed sofa, and restored my living room to its former cozy glory. I installed a top-of-the-line security system, including cameras and motion sensors. My small, humble house was a safe space again, a sanctuary. The community support didn't stop there. Peggy and Mr. Daniel threw a small Welcome Home Clara party on my newly repaired porch. It wasn't about the millions. It was about the relief of knowing that justice had prevailed on Sycamore Street. But the final act of my revenge wasn't about the money or the house. It was about something much more personal. Rex was awaiting his criminal trial, which Maxine assured me would result in a short prison sentence and an official felony conviction for elder abuse. He was dead in the water, but I still had one loose end to tie up. I called Maxine. I have one final thing I want to do, I told her. It's the only way to truly reclaim my dignity. I want to meet Rex, not in a courtroom, but in a neutral space with the lawyers present. I want to look him in the eye one last time. Maxine surprisingly agreed. It's a terrible idea from a legal perspective, but I understand the personal need. We'll set up a secured room at the jail. You'll have guards, and I'll be there. But Clara, what are you going to say to him? I smiled, a small, cold, satisfying smile. I'm going to tell him why he lost. I'm going to tell him what the most expensive mistake of his life really was. The day of the jailhouse meeting arrived. It felt surreal, like walking onto a movie set. I was seated in a stark, tiny room. Maxine was beside me. Rex was brought in, wearing an orange jumpsuit, his eyes sunken and his demeanor completely broken. He looked older, smaller, and utterly defeated. The arrogance was completely gone. "Mrs. Jenkins," he rasped, his voice barely a whisper. I hope you're happy now." I looked at him, not with hatred, but with a clinical, detached appraisal, like I was checking a patient's vitals. "Happy." "No, Rex, I'm not happy," I said, my voice steady. "I'm satisfied. And I came here to tell you something you need to understand, since you were so busy calling me a wretch." I leaned forward slightly, making sure he couldn't look away. "You didn't lose this case because I was a good actress, or because my lawyer was slick. You lost because you completely misjudged what true wealth is. You thought wealth was the 20 grand you stole, the Cayman account, the fancy suits, and the mistress apartment. You thought my wealth was zero because I needed help." I paused for effect, letting the weight of the moment settle on him. "You were wrong. My wealth was Peggy's soup. It was Mr. Daniel's repaired faucet. It was the church's food baskets. And it was my daughter's unconditional love when she finally saw the truth. You had millions, Rex, but you were so poor you had to steal from a nurse. You had nothing real." Rex didn't say a word. He just stared at the table, realizing the depth of the void inside him. "And here's the most expensive lesson, Rex," I finished, my voice softening just slightly, only to make the point sting more. "You stole $120,000 from me, and in return, you bought me $3.8 million security system, a pristine home, and you gave me back my daughter. You didn't victimize me. You funded my comeback. The only wretch in this room is the one who couldn't see the value of a life built on integrity." I stood up. "Goodbye, Rex. I sincerely hope you use your time here to learn what real honesty feels like. Because you're going to have plenty of time." I turned and walked out with Maxine, feeling the final, exquisite release of 2 years of pain and betrayal. I had achieved more than justice. I had achieved closure. My revenge was complete, personal, and devastating. Leaving that jailhouse meeting, I didn't look back. Walking away from Rex's broken, defeated form felt like shedding the last piece of the old, burdened Clara. My revenge wasn't just the $3.8 million. It was the look on his face when he realized he was fundamentally poorer than the woman he tried to cheat. It was the feeling of walking out of that cold jail into the bright, warm California sun, completely free. The criminal trial followed quickly. Rex, with no job, no money, and no reputation left, took a plea deal. He pled guilty to financial elder abuse, fraud, and violation of a restraining order. He was sentenced to 4 years in a minimum security prison. Maxine assured me that a felony conviction for elder abuse would ensure his wealth management license was revoked permanently. His entire world was wiped clean. With the legal drama over, it was time to rebuild, not just my house, but my life. The massive financial settlement meant I was more than comfortable. I was, ironically, wealthy. The first thing I did was pay back the community. I donated a substantial amount to the St. Thomas Food Drive, enough to keep them stocked for years. I set up a small educational fund in my late husband's name for Maria's children, and I took Peggy and Mr. Daniel out to the fanciest steakhouse in Santa Monica, a place where the waiters wore white gloves. They tried to protest, but I was firm. "You helped save my life," I told them. "This is just the tip of the iceberg." Chloe and I spent months reconnecting. The whole trauma, ironically, brought us closer than we had been since she was a teenager. She moved out of the Hollywood Hills fortress and into a stylish, but much smaller and cozier condo closer to my bungalow. She realized that the luxury life had been Rex's illusion, and she wanted real connections more than expensive crystal. I gave up a huge house for my peace of mind. "Mom," she admitted one afternoon while we were planting petunias in my garden, "and honestly, this little balcony garden is worth more than that 10,000 square foot monster up in the hills. I finally feel like I can breathe. I took some of the settlement money and followed through on the only thing I truly wanted. I established the Clara Jenkins Elder Advocacy Fund. It wasn't about the money. It was about the message. Working with Maxine and Paul, the fund provided free legal representation to seniors in California who were victims of financial abuse by family members or trusted caregivers. I spent a few hours a week volunteering, reviewing cases, and offering advice. I discovered that my story, the quiet nurse who fought back against the millionaire, had resonated deeply. I received letters from people all over the country, mostly seniors, thanking me for giving them the guts to confront their own abusers. I was no longer just Clara Jenkins, the retired nurse. I was Clara Jenkins, the advocate. One of my favorite moments came 6 months after the trial. I was at the fund's office when a young woman came in, terrified and ashamed. Her uncle was stealing her grandmother's pension. I sat with her, not as a lawyer, but as someone who had walked that road. "You have to tell the truth," I advised her gently. "The lie hurts you more than the truth will ever hurt him. You are not a burden. He is the criminal." Seeing the relief and resolve on her face was worth more than any punitive damages check. My life was peaceful again, but it was a richer, deeper peace. I still had my small bungalow, but now it was filled with genuine warmth, regular visits from Chloe, and the knowledge that I had fought a good fight and won. I was gardening, seeing my friends, and finally enjoying the true golden years I had earned. The little wooden box that Peggy gave me on that first terrifying day, I finally opened it. Inside wasn't money or jewelry, but a single, smooth, perfectly ordinary riverstone. On the bottom, Peggy had written one word in tiny, neat script: "Stand." I kept that stone on my nightstand as a reminder. I was 70 years old, and I had been called a gold digger, a liar, and an ungrateful wretch. But I had stood my ground. I had protected my daughter, defended my dignity, and exposed a dangerous predator. If there's one thing I want you to take away from my story, it's this: your silence is the abuser's greatest weapon. Whether you're a retired nurse or a high-powered CEO, people who look down on others often have the most to hide. If someone makes you feel confused, ashamed, or scared, you need to find your voice and yell. Don't worry about being a burden. Worry about being a victim. Rex Sterling thought he could steal a retired nurse's medication money and call her a wretch. He thought wrong. He learned the hard way that when you push a good person too far, they don't just break. They fight back. And sometimes, the sweetest revenge is simply living your best life, richer and stronger than ever before.